Hi, and welcome back to another edition of Inside the Ville. My name is Greg Norman, your host. We are very fortunate today to have a variety of guests, and we are going to start out by talking with Lieutenant Greg Glover from the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. Greg's going to talk a little bit about policing. It's been a bit of a mess across the country with the protests, and Greg's going to give us some insight on what it's like to be a police officer here and maybe some of the things that go on within the police department to maybe ease some tensions and just kind of his insight. And I thought we could talk to the source. Greg will talk to us about that. In addition to that, Brandon Township Recreation Director Fred Waybrant will be with us. Fred's going to talk a little bit about the upcoming baseball season. I guess we're going to actually get back on the field, and we're looking forward to that. We can't wait to hear from some of the things. And Fred's going to talk quite a bit about the park and some of the grants and what's going on with all of that information. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. And then we're going to wrap up the show. Annalise Elliott had a chance to talk to the folks over at Little Things, which is a curio shop here in downtown that stayed open. And they're going to talk a little bit about what it's like to be in business at the moment and all the things that go into the social the social distancing and the pandemic. And I think it'll be an insightful interview. And then I think we finally finish up with Zoe Cooney, who was a senior who graduated from Brandon High School, who was off to the West Coast to Gonzaga College, Gonzaga University. And Zoe's going to tell us a little bit about what it's like to leave home here fairly soon. And Zoe was part of our staff for a couple of years. We're going to miss Zoe a lot. She's a terrific young lady, but she's going to give us some insights to what's going on with all of that. So hopefully that's a full show. So stay tuned, and we will be back in a second. We're talking with Lieutenant Greg Glover, who is the substation commander for the Oakland County Sheriff's Department here in Ortonville.
Yes.
I just wanted to sit down. We talk all the time about how important communications are. And we've had obviously some tough situations over the last couple of weeks.
Oh, absolutely.
And I guess maybe just the first question before we kind of delve into it for a couple of seconds is, you see film, you see what happens with all of the protests and things. As a professional law enforcement officer, what goes through your mind?
Probably first thing is probably embarrassment. I mean, because of, one person's bad actions. And there have been many. I mean, it's not just that one, but that one person's actions have labeled law enforcement across the country. And you see it on how people react, even in a town like Brandon. People start reacting to you differently, especially the younger kids, the younger generation. So it has an effect on everybody.
Do you police differently in a suburban area than you might in a rural area and you might in an urban area?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it's a difference. Nature of calls are totally different. Some people understand things a little bit differently than others do on how you deal with them. A lot of times, when I worked undercover, especially in a larger city, regular conversation often doesn't get the job done. There are an element of people, and it doesn't go. It's not by race on how they react to you based on are you having to put your hands on them? Are you having to yell at them first before they respond to your commands? And so it is a little bit different. I mean, out here, people are not used to dealing with the police all the time. When they call, they're calling for help. Where other areas they're used to dealing with police on a daily basis.
Going through this, you just kind of look at stats and you look at things, and if you look at the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, they're probably, I don't know if clean is the right word, but certainly the safest of police agencies in terms of their interaction with the public. They don't shoot people. And they also seems like they are very proactive about their community policing.
Yes.
And I think that's something that you got to give yourself a pat on the back for. But my point is that that's not true in all cases. We know that they're talking about disbanding the Minneapolis Police Department, and
right.
What's the replacement? Doesn't make sense to me.
I don't either. I mean, we've been really fortunate with the Sheriff's Department. With Sheriff Bouchard, he's very proactive, not only with the policing, but also like in training. Our policies, our procedures, our training. We train year round. Which a lot of departments, you have very little training or only the basic training that they need, from state guidelines. Where we train all the time. And that's something that Sheriff Bouchard instilled, when he came into the sheriff's office as a sheriff. So we're very fortunate as opposed to a lot of departments.
You have some local officers that patrol our streets. We're obviously lucky enough to have the sheriff's department versus having a local agency,
yes,
as a lot of communities are. You have conversations with your guys, I mean, on a daily basis with what's going on in the last few weeks?
Daily. Yeah, I mean, anything from, how are, the kids are reacting to us, the embarrassment, the effect that it's having on all of us. Because it has. I mean, whether it was it started out with the COVID, that was a major hit, because we had to start policing differently, different policies on the type of calls we were even going to respond to. And then now all of a sudden the Minneapolis incident comes in and takes precedence over everything. We hardly hear about any of the COVID, and we do have a smaller black community out there that we have to deal with, from time to time. So it is a topic of conversation.
What do you tell an work night? I'm not that's just the right word.
Yeah.
We tell Brandon Township president that maybe he's just not quite sure. I think communications are important. So we're talking to the guy that polices for us, right?
Yes.
What do you tell somebody in Brandon Township who watches television and might overreact a little bit?
Don't believe. I mean, a lot of people, they don't wait to ever hear the second story. The other half of the story. And I'll tell you, I don't know of anybody in law enforcement from the conversations that I've had justify what happened in Minneapolis. Nobody does in the law enforcement community. We're all embarrassed by it. Nobody understands why it happened, how it happened, and what the reasonings were. I mean, we don't police that way. The fight was over. He should have been sat up. That it never should have happened, but it did. So we have to respond on to questions and how people act. And people out here are supportive of us. There's such a small percentage of the population out here that doesn't want us here, doesn't want to interact. One of the nice things is having a school resource officer here. So we know a lot of the kids. I've coached out here for years. That a lot of the guys that work out of the substation live in this community, so they know a lot of the people, more personally. So it's a little bit different.
Do you think community policing versus we talked a little bit a couple of days ago about 1033, which was a program put in place by President Reagan to basically sell police departments military items that they might not have otherwise had. You can't take a knife to a gunfight. I get that.
Right.
But then you see some of the arguments lately that police have become more militarized in their process. And my question is, community policing seems to be very effective because you get to know the people. It's the old walk the beat,
Right.
like it might have been back in New York. My
Sure.
question to you is, how do you affect community policing in a community that's rural, where it's not walking from a block to a block to a block? Is that something that can even be done?
No, it can. I mean, you can still get out into these back roads, and when people are out, you can pull up and talk to them. I do it daily, as most of my guys do. You get into those subdivisions and places where people meet, and you communicate with them. So I think you can still do that. Talking about the militarization of law enforcement, that really started with active shooters. We started realizing that we were outgunned, in law enforcement. The LA bank robbery was a prime example.
Yeah.
Those guys didn't have the weaponry to combat what was going on. So law enforcement had to take another step just to be on an even keel at the minimum. So I would never say we're too militarized. I mean,
Okay.
we use similar formations for riots, those type of things. We use similar gear that you have to protect yourself. That's kind of the nature of the beast.
The thing that bothers me is you watch YouTube and there'll be a guy with a camera standing outside a social security department, a police department, taking pictures just to get the attention, right?
Right.
Police officers will come up, local folks will come up and say, what are you doing? Well, I'm just taking pictures. It's my constitutional right. Nothing against it. I get that they're
Right.
pressing the issue. Those idiots should go home. But here's the other side of that. If a police officer is wrong, why argue? There's a court. Do what he says, go to court, and you're not going to get shot.
Right. I mean, we're all human. I mean,
Right.
we make mistakes too, obviously, and that's what the courts are for. If we're wrong, you go through the court system. That's in place. I mean, we're one of the most. Our court system is probably one of the best court systems in the world, and that's what it's here for.
I just don't get the mentality. You're carrying a gun and a taser. I'm going to, for the moment, you're the king. And I get that there's an issue.
Right.
But there's other places to fight. And if you're right, you'll win.
Exactly.
That's the thing I don't get. And if you're right, I'm guessing, certainly it's true in your department, if the officer screws up enough, he's no longer an officer.
Oh, exactly. One of the units that I came out of before coming to Brandon was our special investigations unit, and that's where you handle those type of issues, corrupt officers, officers pushing the envelope, complaints, those type of things, and the sheriff's office has terminated many of members for doing that. I mean, we weed those people out sooner or later.
I think just even locally, I think I'm saying this now as a Caucasian, so
Right.
it's easy to have that
Right.
opinion when it doesn't happen to Afro-Americans. But I think of the Oakland County Sheriff's Department taking over Pontiac.
Yes.
The crime numbers in Pontiac have dropped almost 100% since you guys have taken over. So it sometimes does have a fact of who's running
Sure.
the police department.
And I think that's part of the problem with some of these bigger cities that you start seeing. I mean, and Minneapolis has had, they've been on the front page of the news over several issues, and I think it starts at the top. I mean, it runs downhill. I mean, I don't believe their training's up to snuff. There's obvious issues there that need to be corrected.
What goes through your mind as a manager of police officers in this area? What goes through your mind at night thinking, okay, I got to make sure we get this, I got to make sure we have this conversation? Or is there not a conversation?
There's not a lot of conversation on it. Most of our guys are veterans. They're experienced guys. They've been through our training programs. We've got a good group of guys in this department. Like I said, the ones that are troublemakers or that are on the edge end up weeding themselves out. I mean, we have the cameras, the voice recorders, those type of things. Sooner or later, those people come to the front, and the sheriff's office has always dealt with that.
I think of the 5% or the 3% of every profession that
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
isn't the cream.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's unfortunate that you get brandished. So the reason I'm having this
Sure.
conversation is I just think communication matters. And if somebody watches
huge.
this, they know where you're coming from locally.
I think communication's huge. I mean, there is always going to be a certain part of the population that is going to rip and try to destroy law enforcement at all costs. That rules and laws do not apply to them. And we represent the law, obviously, and we're going to have problems with them. Most of the people out here, if you communicate with them, even if they're wrong, and you communicate with them the right way, normally things work out, and we don't have those issues.
Most of us don't every day have to go up to a car and with the window opening, not knowing what's possible. Now, 99% of the time you're fine.
Right.
But it's it's when I open my door at work, I'm not worried about somebody standing on the other side.
No.
Hopefully.
It's an issue. I mean, traffic stops over the years. I mean, and throughout the country, there have been issues involving people being shot during traffic stops. Traffic stops for us, especially since with the open carry, the concealed weapons now has brought a whole different element to law enforcement. At one time, you didn't expect to ever have an encounter unless it was somebody that was, hell bent on committing a crime that would be carrying a gun. Now, almost every car you stop has a weapon, so you have to prepare for that.
Proactive, I would think, that would be a better mantra than reactive.
Yes.
For police officers,
Yes.
like anything else.
Yes. Yeah. If you can't be reactive all the time. It doesn't work.
It comes when terrible things happen, but for the most part,
Yes. Yeah.
if they know there's a face there that matters.
Yes.
It changes the
Yes.
scope of things.
I mean, you figure 99% of the people when they call the police are calling for help. They want help, and that's what we're there for. There is at times people that go to jail when we get called. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast.
Last question, I guess, is hypothetical. If you had a magic wand, what would maybe one or two things you would do to fix it? And I mean, I get that there's bad apples, but if there's one thing you could, with being sort of looking back through the lens at yourself, what would you think about?
I would say, it probably starts with training, really more so. Not everybody, not everybody's made to do this job. I mean, there is a certain, every company has their 10%ers, they call it. We definitely have ours. We're not exempt from it. Training, not allowing officers that have been terminated or let go for certain issues in departments go on and be hired by another department and then put back out on the streets. We've had guys like that I know personally should never have been out dealing with the public that we've let go that are now working for agencies. And normally they land in the bigger city agencies where they're struggling to maintain and keep employees.
There is legislation. We want private information to be private, but there is some legislation now in the state.
Yeah.
You get fired from one department, and all of a sudden you're found out over here beating up some other guys in another department.
Right.
There is some legislation for at least some kinds of professions
Yes.
that are critical, that maybe we're going to do a little better job of vetting, which I think makes sense.
Right.
If you're strapping on a gun, it's one thing. If I'm a cook, and I'm a big cook, I go to another restaurant, maybe pancakes aren't as good, but
Right.
if you're strapping on a gun, it is a little bit different from that perspective.
Certainly. It is different. I mean, it's, like I said, that this job's not for everybody. I mean, it's a tough profession today. I think a lot more so than it ever used to be years ago. Like back when my grandfather and my father were policemen. Today's a tougher age because of all the different things going on. It's a different career, no question.
We appreciate you sitting down with us to communicate
Absolutely.
with our group, and
Absolutely.
have a great week, and thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Hello, I'm Lisa Brown, Oakland County Clerk, Register of Deeds. You know to check your credit report, but when's the last time you checked the title to your property? Most likely your home is your biggest financial investment, and deed fraud is on the rise across the whole country. Oakland County is no exception. That's why I worked with Xerox and Google to create our property records notification system. Property records notification alerts property owners about potentially fraudulent activity, such as forged deeds and bogus liens. This free service, which is the first of its kind in the United States, makes it possible to receive up-to-date information about a property, making it much more difficult for fraudsters to go undetected. To sign up for our free notification system, please visit ocmideeds.com.
We're talking with Fred Waybrant, who's the Recreation Director over here for Brandon Township. Fred, we're finally starting to see some light at the end of the recreation tunnel. So, you've been working your tail off out at the park, trying to get all kinds of things done. Give us an update on the park, and then the follow-up is, where are we with recreation?
Well, the update on the park, Greg, is that, of course, we have 3 grants going on all at the same time here. And grant 1, it has a extended deadline of June 30th. And grant 1 consists of the 2 new Little League baseball fields, parking for 110 cars, a lot of miscellaneous things that go with that, piping, underground, things of that nature. So I've been working on quite a few hours to get that done, and we're moving forward. We're going to be done on time. Now, the other grant is grant 2, which is the deadline's not until June of next year, and that's your 3 sand volleyball courts, the full-size basketball court, additional parking for another 120 cars. Grant 3, which will be starting this fall, is our brand new concessions, attached pavilion, and comfort stations, 2 bathrooms. So we're looking forward to that with additional parking. Those are all 3 things that are on the goal for new development at the park. So recreation did come to a stall. March 18th, we were pretty much shut down. Right away, we had to cancel our soccer program. We had quite a few kids signed up too, so it was unfortunate. And since then, we just been looking forward to what we can do after this social distancing has been lifted. And right now, since the governor said we can have up to 100 people, playgrounds are open, we're moving forward with our
Social
baseball
distancing
program.
hasn't been lifted, but we've allowed, it's been eased a little bit. They still want
Eased,
social
yeah.
distancing within various programs.
Yeah, they're saying 3 to 6 feet, I've heard, and of course the normal 6 feet. So we are moving forward with our baseball program, not the girls, unfortunately, because Independence had shut down their program. Goodrich shut down their program. Oxford shut down their program.
So nobody to play.
There's nowhere for our girls to play. We never get enough girls to make a round robin format.
Okay.
And we invited the girls to play with the boys, but
So the boys start when?
they're starting tomorrow practice.
And this is, right now we're talking Tuesday, June 16th. So they'll start games when?
next week, I'm sorry, July 1st.
And what levels? T-ball?
Nope.
Nope. What levels?
We're gonna go, we didn't do T-ball for the reason that it's hard to control 3 and 4 year olds and 4 and 5 year olds for social distancing. And we're gonna take the challenge on coach pitch. And then we have the machine pitch, and then we have the Little League.
So you'll be back to a full schedule here within about 10 days.
We're about half as many teams we normally would have.
Okay.
So
The MHSAA has put out all kinds of information that you can practice, but you can't get football can't get close. They are using 6-foot distances. You have to enter the field from one end, and the other team coming on has to enter. It's still a very, at least in Michigan, from the rules that we're following for high school coaches, it's still pretty tough.
yeah,
I'm assuming you're expecting the same for recreation.
yeah. We did some research from other rec departments, even out of state, and I've been to a couple seminars as well. For instance, our dugouts. We're only allowing 3 kids in the dugout. Batter up, batter on deck, batter in the hole. It's up to the coach to keep his distance, no high-fiving and all that stuff. They've even gone to the point where when you line up after the game, there's no shaking hands, but it's the tip of the hat. So
Which is what they used to do.
yeah. So there's some guidelines that like another instance, everybody has their own game ball. We're not using one ball and it's going both directions. So there's some guidelines that we're doing. I think we're going to make it work. Everybody's excited as well.
Just a financial question.
Mm-hmm.
Recreation in Brandon Township stands on its own. What it makes is what it keeps.
Yes.
And you do programs. Have you been severely hurt by this pandemic and by the layoff?
Absolutely. For instance, our office supplies, we have a $30,000 budget for office supplies that comes from program only. What are you going to do? So I was told by the supervisors, do business as is with Kara and I had to lay off one of my gals, and we'll worry about it at the end of the year, because we do have a little kitty fund that I've been saving over the years that we might have to pull out of.
Is programming going to be hurt because of the pandemic?
Absolutely. As you well know, indoor sports might not happen,
Yeah.
which come October, that's what we start gearing for. Right now, we're hoping that our soccer and flag football takes off. We had to cancel our 3-on-3 basketball tournament. It's outside, but it's too much contact.
Yeah, especially with sweat flying and
Yeah.
droplets and everything else.
And we don't know about Septemberfest yet. Now, movie night, August 15th, we're going to still move forward with that, but we won't have the bounce houses, some of those kind of items. But we can do the social distancing on the Slayton Hill so the kids can watch the film.
We're all learning a new life, and that's just the way it goes.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And
Anything I'm missing?
no, let's just hope for the best.
Okay.
And be safe.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'm Annalise Elliott with the Ortonville television station for our show Inside the Ville. And you're Jesse Painter.
Yes.
And you and your wife own Little Things in downtown Ortonville.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so you're a small business, and obviously you were affected by the pandemic. So did you decide to stay open and do curbside pickup and things like that during the pandemic, or did you fully close?
We fully closed, and from home we did some Facebook lives, and I porch delivered if they were local right in the village, and then we scheduled some curbside pickups too. Yeah.
Okay,
We
and
did all
then
that. We did all that from home in the store. We kept the store closed.
so then was your business affected negatively from being closed?
Oh yes, yes. And even when we open back up, it's not going to be as busy immediately. You know, there's still a lot of people that are leery about coming out. Yeah. So things aren't back up to where they would be originally. And that may take some time. I don't know. We had to just wait and see how long it is before people feel safe to be out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And since safety is like such a big concern right now, are there any measures that you guys are taking inside your store to keep people safe?
Yeah, we have a sign that requests that they wear a mask, and there's round circles with footprints on our floors that say, you know, social distancing, stay 6 feet apart. Yeah, and we have hand sanitizer throughout the store. Yeah.
So, and then I assume everybody has to wear a mask too.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And some people opt not to, but most of them do wear them. Yeah.
And then you had mentioned that earlier when we spoke that you started a website over the quarantine. So
Yeah.
do you intend to keep that up permanently, or?
Yes, it will be up permanently. Yep. Now, a
And
lot
is
of people
that
like to sit at home and shop. We haven't had a single order since we opened last week, Tuesday, full time, but that's okay. People are coming in, so one way or the other, they're going to shop. Yeah. But yeah,
so?
we did that while we were shut down. It kept us very busy.
So
Yeah.
do you think that that will improve your business going forward, having a website and online ordering?
We sure hope so. Yeah. We definitely hope so. Yep.
So with all the changes that came out of being quarantined and the pandemic, are there any that you're going to keep besides your website?
I would say that probably the hand sanitizer is going to stay around. I hope someday the masks and the 6 feet apart will, go away someday, but I'm sure that's a ways down the road,
Mm-hmm.
because we're pretty personable, and we like hugging our return customers and talking close to everybody, and you can't do none of that right now. Can't even shake hands, really.
So do you think that all of these precautions have hurt our community?
I don't think it really hurt our community. Ortonville's too tight-knit of a community.
Mm-hmm.
But it did make us aware that these kind of things can happen to us. And, how, and made us figure out other ways too, like I'd come into the store and it'd be closed down and do a FaceTime live with somebody that wanted to see what we had in the store. So I'd, walk around with my phone and show them the entire store. So it, gave us an opportunity to see there's other ways of doing things too, which, is never a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So do you think that maybe in a sense, even though we are physically farther apart, maybe it brought us closer together and we have more ways to communicate?
It just added more ways to communicate. Yes. I don't think we're any further apart, but I don't think that we're super close either.
Mhm.
team. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think we drifted apart too much.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Zoe Cooney, and I'm a senior at Brandon High School.
hmm And since your high school year was cut short from coronavirus, are there some things you think you'll miss the most about high school?
Yeah, I think I'll miss being like familiar with everybody, like being able to know all the teachers and go to all the classes and like see everybody, like be able to recognize everybody in the school. And I'm also gonna miss like just like I don't know, like going to football games and stuff. Like my college doesn't have football, so I miss that.
And you weren't expecting it to happen, so like since it was so unexpected, do you think there was more things you would have done if you knew you had less time?
Yeah, I just wish that we would have had like a final day so that I could get like closure because I didn't know it was like the last day of school.
Mhm.
And I just think I would have went to more things definitely.
Yeah. And since we're out of school now, and we won't be having like prom and stuff like that, is that like tough on you or?
It was tough at first, and then I just kind of got over it because I was like, in the scheme of things, it's not that deep. Like I already went to prom twice,
Mhm.
and um, I just know that this isn't like the most like important part of my life, so it's like hard right now, but like it'll be okay. So yeah.
And everybody looks forward to graduation, like since they get to high school. And I know you guys will be doing it virtually, right?
I don't know. They haven't decided yet.
They haven't.
Mm-mm.
And if they do it virtually, do you think they should postpone and try to do it like a traditional one?
Yeah, I definitely think they should try to have a traditional graduation, even if we can only bring like two family members and social distance or whatever. I really want graduation. Like we've lost so much stuff this year, so I just want to walk across the stage.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Hmm.
And so as far as like sports goes, you played soccer, right?
Yeah.
hmm And you didn't get to play your senior season, right?
Right.
Yeah, that must be really tough. Do you think you'll get to play it like after high school, or is your career done?
No, I'm just kind of done. Yeah, I definitely am done. It's kind of sad. We were supposed to have like our senior night game last week.
Wow.
So yeah.
Yeah. And that's about it. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, no problem.
That was Zoe Cooney talking to us a little bit about graduating from high school. And I wanted to thank our guest, Lieutenant Greg Glover from the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, for talking a little bit about policing. Certainly Fred Waybrant from the Township Recreation Department here in Brandon. And we wanted to thank the folks over at Little Things for having a conversation with us. I think Annalise brought out quite a bit to the table as far as just kind of giving us an insight. These shows are designed to just kind of keep up with what's going on in the community as we start to see a little more light in the tunnel. And we will come back next week with another show, and we hope you enjoyed this one. We will see you next time.